A beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Oh, could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for beauty. Would you be mine? Oh, could you be mine? 'Cause I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. While we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please, won't you be my neighbor? Hello, neighbors. Good to see you. It's time for another live Bible study. This is your opportunity to study the Bible with me. I'm going to take you right through the book of Genesis. That's where we left off, and that's where we're going to pick up. Genesis chapter 4. And it's a very fascinating book, especially when you get into all the different theories about different things that it talks about. And we're going to get into some interesting theories. We will be hitting the chapter on the Nephilim today, yes, which is a fascinating topic that I get tired of being asked about. I'm just kidding, but it is a common question that I get. So that being said, I do want to thank you for being here. And just a reminder, we are streaming on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. So if one of those isn't working for you, you can go to the other. YouTube has the best view because that's the one I save all the videos on. So, hey, if you have your preferred platform, you go for it. All right. I will try to I need more voices. Yeah, I will try to keep an eye on all three comments, but it does get a bit difficult. So if I don't get to you right away, my apologies, but I am grateful that you're here. So yes, before we get started with the housekeeping, the first people here always get to vote. I've got red, green, and yellow. Vote which color you want now. Which one do you want to start with? Of course, I'll cycle through all three, but what's your vote? Got a lot of green votes already. Whoo! Look at that. Votes fly. All right. TikTok's going crazy with the votes. Oh, I love it. You guys are just throwing the recommendations at me, and that's what matters. I love it. Thank you so much. All right. It looks like green, far and away, is the heavy winner. Absolutely. Followed by yellow and then red/orange. Absolutely. I would not have guessed. Blue was not an option. Come on. Come on. I didn't even give you that option. Ah, goodness sakes. Oops, sorry about that. Here I am just making a mess. All right. So green, yellow, then orange. That's what we're going to do. All right. So that being said, let's go over some housekeeping as we typically do. So if you are interested in following this ministry or supporting it, go to dinksthepuppet.com. And let me just slide it over there for you. This is what it looks like both on mobile and on the desktop. You can follow me on all four major platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Um, if you want to support the ministry directly, those are the best ways to do it. Watch my videos. Yeah, this way helps me more than anything else. But if you want to do something else, you can become a member on all four of these platforms. That's a monthly subscription, and it goes to the ministry. There are some videos that are just for subscribers. I try to do that. It's not super amazing videos. It really isn't, but it is a way that you can support the ministry if you want to monetarily, or you can go to our merch page. You can buy some cool Dinks the Puppet or Sunny the Puppet, that's my wife's account, merch. So they've got mugs and jackets and stickers and all sorts of cool things. You can go to our Amazon wish list. That's where you buy something, gets shipped directly to us. So whether that's Bibles or other study materials or costumes that we use for the puppets, what have you. Some of you are very, very generous with that one. We thank you for that. And we always make unboxing videos so that you can see what's going on in the ministry. And then Cameo, that's been fairly popular here lately. Just did a video for a pastor. He was celebrating 21 years as a pastor, but he also apparently was in The Chosen. He was in the show The Chosen as a background extra. So that was a fun video to make. But if you want to have a custom video made from Dinks, yes, you can. Absolutely right there. All right. So those are the best ways that are not involving watching videos that you can support the ministry if you so choose. All right. Now, if you are in need of a Bible or any kind of other study material, then you just simply go to sunnythepuppet.net, not dinksthepuppet.com. Go to sunnythepuppet.net. That's my wife's account. Go follow her on all those 4 platforms right there. And you can message her and say, hey, I don't have a Bible, can't afford one. Can you send me one? Yeah, absolutely. What do you need? We'll have that conversation. We have a lot of the dyslexia Bibles right now to give away. So if you or someone you know has dyslexia, and they really want to read the Bible, we can help you out. So just reach out to my wife at sunnythepuppet.net, message her on your favorite platform, follow her on all 4 platforms. All right, that's the spiel. All right. So we are picking up on Genesis chapter 4 where we left off, and we're going to get into Cain and Abel and through to the flood. The flood hits us in chapter 7, so we should be able to hit it tonight if we do 4 chapters. I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibilities, but we'll see what happens. So that being said, just going to remind you of a few things that are going on with the book of Genesis. So Genesis, again, is attributed to Moses. Not that hard to believe that Moses could be the one who wrote it, because he literally was talking with God every day. Like, he would go up on the mountain, talk with God, come back down. And writing things down is something that you would do if you're talking with God. So it's not all that far-fetched at all to understand that God would tell him exactly how things happened. So is it a problem for us that there are other accounts of floods that predate what Moses wrote down? No, because if it actually happened, you would expect there to be other flood stories. God telling Moses after the others were written down just means God told him how it actually happened. So if anything, it's just more credibility to it happening. But that being said, here we are in Genesis, which is the prequel to Exodus. Yes, the point of Genesis is the Exodus. Moses is writing everything up to a point. This is very similar to how Luke and Acts works. Luke wrote both the Gospel of Luke as well as the book of Acts, and Luke was meant to explain what's going on with Paul. The whole point of the Gospel of Luke is to get to Paul in the book of Acts. That's what he was trying to get to, explaining why Paul does what he does. And so, same thing here. You have Moses writing about, hey, we left Egypt, but how did we get there? And so, basically, writing a whole account of everything under the inspiration of God himself. All right? So we've talked about Adam and Eve. We talked about creation. We talked about the garden. And we talked about sin and being kicked out of the garden. So here we are now. Afterward, there's nobody in the garden. Garden's gone. You can't go back. And so now we are left with their offspring. Okay. And so the first 2 offspring that are mentioned are Cain and Abel. So how long did Cain hate his brother? As long as he was able. Oh, sorry, that was a bad joke. Anyway, so I hope you laughed. Please, at least give me some pity laughs. I'll take it. So we're going to go into what is going on, why God receives one of their sacrifices but not the other. It's confusing if you don't look very deep into it, but if you look at specifically what words are used, it's a lot easier to understand. So we are doing a Bible study. I'm not Dinks the Puppet. I am his traveling companion. He does the videos. I do the lives. Works out better for both of us. We're in Genesis chapter 4, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. Here we go. All right. Now, Adam knew his wife Eve. Oh, hey, I know her. No. So the word know right here, knew and know, in the Hebrew is an experiential knowledge. Okay, so this literally means they had sex. Okay, I'm not going to tiptoe around it. That's literally what it means. And you can tell because of what it says afterwards. She conceived and bore Cain. So he knew her very well. So if you've ever heard the phrase, I knew her in the biblical sense, it's always been understood this means sex. Okay, so that's all it means. They procreated, cool, and she conceived and bore Cain. Now, this is her response to the first human being born of other humans. Okay, before this was just Adam and Eve, just the 2 of them, and God. So here comes another human being coming out of her body, Can you imagine never having experienced a baby, never having experienced pregnancy? Can you imagine how weird this was for Eve? Okay. I have gotten a man with the help of the I am. Oh, that's just lovely. I love it. It's like, hey, look, I got a man. A man came out of me. It's fun when you think of it that way. And I'm sure that this is not so much weird as it is in awe of what God is able to do. Just think about the miracle of life. It's the fact that we can reproduce and not only replace, but we can grow in population by exponents is an amazing system that God has put in place. And we are not worthy of that trust, that's for sure. But I do want to hit on this. I got to hit on this every time. Anytime you see the capital O-R-D for Lord, where it's all capitals, that is a replacement for what? What does that replace? Yahweh. Yes, absolutely. No, it is not Yahuwah. I know that's a popular thing right now. That actually comes from someone who, that was actually started by someone who does not understand how to actually pronounce Hebrew letters, and it just caught on popularity because he had a few viral videos. So, no, it is not Yahuwah. It is literally Yahweh. And it's not Jehovah. That's a transliteration and a poor one at that, by the way. Yahweh is the most well understood way of pronouncing YHWH, which is known as the Tetragrammaton, which means I am that I am, or I am who I am. Yes. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. No big deal. So the Jesus, it declares himself to be this God in John 8:58. He said, "Before Abraham was, I am." And the whole purpose of him stating that is because they laughed at the idea that he could have known Abraham. And he's basically saying, I am the timeless God. I simply am the God who is. That's the point of God saying that his name is I am. This is the name he's later going to give Moses in the burning bush. I am the God who is. Okay. So when I read this, I'm going to say with the help of the I am, I'm going to read it so that you know how often God's name is literally in the Bible. And now, why do they do this? It's not because they're trying to hide it, because if they were trying to hide it, they really suck at hiding things, okay? The translators are showing God's name respect. They would do exactly this when the Jews would read scripture aloud. When they came to God's name, instead of saying Yahweh, they would say Adonai, which literally means Lord. So they would replace it verbally. Okay, so the translators are still identifying it for you by showing all caps, but showing respect for the Lord's name and not overusing it. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's get on board with the translators. They're not evil, they're not hiding things, they're being respectful, they love God. Let's move on. And again, she bore his brother Abel. Now, Abel was a keeper of sheep and Cain a worker of the ground. This is not saying one is better than the other. They're just simply setting up the story for what's about to happen. One did animals, one did produce. Cool. You've got a shepherd and a farmer. Nothing wrong with that. Here we go. In the course of time, we don't know how much time, could have been decades. They could have been 150 years old each. We don't know how long of time. Okay. But in the course of time, when they got to this point, eventually Cain brought to the I am an offering of the fruit of the ground. Does not say anything was wrong with that. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And the I am had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. Okay, so before we move on, what is the difference between the two offerings? Besides one is an animal and one is produce, what is the difference in the description? Firstborn's a good cue. Yep. What's some other cues you see there? Best quality, that's the implication, absolutely. Yes. And you see the fat portions, yes. So the thing is that is it's just saying that Cain, he brought offering of the fruit of the ground. Just here's some fruit. Okay, that's it. Just here's some fruit for you, God. Here's some things for you. And Abel brought the firstborn of his flock. So the very primary one. Firstborn does not always literally mean firstborn. It is a title. Jesus is called the firstborn of those who are resurrected. That doesn't mean he was the first person to be resurrected, because he wasn't. He is the one who is the lion's share. He's the best of us all. God himself in the flesh is the best human who could ever live. And so this is the best of his flock, the very best one he could find, and of their fat portions, just the greatest one he could. I want God to have this one. That's the difference. Here's what you require of me. Here's the I love you, want you to have the best. That's the difference. That's why the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. Because he was responding to their heart. It's not that God is fickle and says, I like dead lambs more than dead fruit. No, it's, I love that you cared that much about me. I'm going to respond to that. And he's still that way today, okay? So Cain was very angry and his face fell, okay? So his face didn't fall off. That's just how Hebrew puts it, that his countenance changed, as it might say in the KJV. Basically what it means is there was a visible component to his change of internal feelings towards God. Like something in him just snapped. That's the idea, okay? So the I am said to Cain, obviously God's aware, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And that's the implication right there. If you do well, which means he didn't do well. He just like threw something out there. Here you go, God, take your thing. He was not putting heart into it. He was not putting effort into it. Gratitude. And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. This is the second generation of all of humanity. And so they would have been very aware of exactly how Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden. They never got to even see the garden. All they would ever do is hear about it. And just know that this one big mistake, this sinful mistake, is what cost them everything. And God is warning him, dude, sin is waiting for you. I can see your heart. If you aren't careful, you're going to fall to sin just like your parents. That's his warning. Its desire is for you, and you must rule over it, which means that you can rule over it. You have the choice of whether or not you sin. Is it possible for you to go the rest of your life without ever sinning? No. Eventually you'll give in, because your very flesh craves sin. Okay, Paul describes that in Romans 7. But we are also told that you will never be tempted beyond what you can bear. God will always give you a way out. So even though, and so the implication here is, even though eventually you're going to fail from time to time, every time you give in, it is your fault. It is your choice. That's the point. And so he's saying, look, you've got to fight this. Don't do it. Don't fall to this trap. But he does anyway. So Cain spoke to Abel, his brother. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother, and Abel killed him. Ooh. His brother Abel, Abel killed him, and brother Abel and killed him. That was a switch. Sorry, let me reread that. And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Then the I am said to Cain, where is Abel, your brother? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? Okay, so let's talk about that. Here we have Cain making the same exact mistake that Adam and Eve did. What happened when Adam and Eve sinned? Immediately after Adam and Eve sinned, they sewed some fig leaves together to try to hide their nakedness, and then God came, and what did he say? What did God say to them right after they sinned, right when he showed up? Let's see who's got it. Where are you? That's exactly right. Yeah. He says, where are you? And so here he's saying, where is your brother? Where is Abel, your brother? In both instances, God is giving them a chance to be honest. Even though there's going to be consequences here, God is saying, I'm giving you a chance to be honest with what you've done because I already know. Okay. And so, just like his parents, he learns perfectly from Eve and then Adam. They both shifted the blame. Okay. Adam blamed the woman blamed the serpent. And so here he's like, oh, I don't know. I'm not responsible for him. Yes, you are. He's your brother. You know, like you really should care about where your brother is, especially if you're the only two, brothers in this narrative, right? That's the implication, is that he should care. Okay, family should care. And so he's shifting the blame just like they did again. Yeah, absolutely. It's an amazing connection. And it also shows the human cycle. The cycle doesn't change. We've been doing the same dumb thing since the beginning. We get tempted by the same things, we fall to the same things, and we try to excuse ourselves by the same things. Nothing has changed. That's why you still need a savior. All right? And the I am said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground." Okay, so let's talk about this. Remember that Hebrew is a concrete language. Okay, I love to use this example. It says, when it says that God is slow to anger, it doesn't say he's slow to anger. It literally says he's long of nose. Okay, there's certain ways that the Hebrew language works to make its point that would not make sense in our culture and our language. Okay, so when it says his blood is crying out to me from the ground, it's not literally saying that his blood is literally speaking a language. Okay, people like to over literalize this. This is where you get the flat earthers thinking that we have a dome. No, it's a concrete language. Let's learn a few things here. Okay, so the same thing here. It's not literally crying out. He's just saying the evidence of this atrocity you just committed is right there on the ground. I can't ignore that. Okay, that's literally what he's saying here. Okay, and now, not later, now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. So here's the fascinating thing. Okay, what was what was Cain responsible for? He was a worker of the ground. And where did his brother's blood go? On the ground. So now the ground is cursed. Okay? So the very thing he was dependent on is what is testifying against him. This is absolutely meant to be all lined up here. Okay? And so when you work the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength yield to you its strength or its best. You're not automatically going to get the best fruit. Now you're going to have to work for it. So Adam's curse was that by the sweat of his brow would he have to bring forth the produce. Okay, so Adam's curse was, you weren't doing the job I told you to do, so now your job is going to suck. And now Cain's curse is, you did something terrible on the ground, so now the ground is going to suck. Okay, so they both received the penalty according to their sin. And so he, moving on, he says, which has opened to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. So he's going to be wanted man. Now, people are confused here because they do see Adam and Eve and they see Cain and Abel and they assume there's only 4 people on the planet. No, they're just the first 4. Okay. How is he going to be a fugitive from Adam and Eve? Are they going to hunt him down? No, because it does say later that Adam and Eve, or it says earlier that Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters. It tells us that. Literally tells us that. And this is after the course of time. Like I said, this could be 150 years after. Do you know how many kids, and those kids could have kids, and those kids could have kids in 150 years? You could be talking about a couple thousand people right here. Okay? It could have been 300 years. We don't know when this took place. But the whole point is that there are other people on the earth, and it does not require evolution. It does not require other humans, and then God just chose these 2 humans. No, people have a lot of theories because of their assumptions, not because of what the Bible says. If you have to add to what the Bible says, your theory is probably wrong. Okay? God has proven himself true through the Bible so often. Science and history are always catching up with the Bible. At first they said Jericho didn't exist. Then they found Jericho. Then they said the walls didn't exist. Then they found the walls. Okay? Every time the people say the Bible's wrong, people are proven wrong. So don't take people. Take the Bible. Got it? Okay? So, that being said, there are other people around. That's who he's going to be a fugitive from. All right? So, here's his response. Cain said to the I am, "My punishment is greater than I can bear." Oh, he's whining. Why? Well, first off, he's the first person to ever be exiled. He's the first person who's ever committed murder. So it's not like he's used to a penal system of judgment. Okay, so I'm sure maybe we would have reacted the same way. "Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wonder on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." See? So there are people there, but again, it does not require evolution. Then the I am said to him, "Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold." So the thing is that if you he's still there's this mercy here. He is crying out to God in mercy. There is a bit of repentance here. Maybe not repentance as in I need you to save my soul, but at least repentance of the situation. Like I can't believe this terrible thing I did, and God shows his mercy here. And so his mercy is if anyone does take your life, which the implication is this word will spread, then then 7 people in their family will die. So that's a pretty safe protection, okay? And the I am put a mark on Cain, lest any found him who should attack him. So he identified him apart from everyone else, knowing, okay, this is Cain. So even if he got older, that mark would still be there. He'd still be protected, okay? And so then Cain went away from the presence of the I am and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. That's very important. We'll come back to the land of Nod later in the book. Now, that being said, what is the mark of Cain? What is the mark on Cain? Well, does anybody know what Jehovah's Witnesses say the mark of Cain is? And I heard this when I was younger too, but I found out it was a Jehovah's Witness teaching. What do they say? It's fascinating, isn't it? If you know. They're not right. I'm just wondering if you know. Ah, you do. Yes. "'Tis only a scratch got it first. Good job." Is it the same as Mormons? I don't know. But the Jehovah's Witnesses teach that black people, yep, being black, African American, dark skinned, that's what they teach is the mark of Cain. Oh, just those terrible black people. Just tell me that they were not racist, really, seriously. Yeah, I know. Terrible. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. Okay, it is the same as LDS. Yeah. Okay. And so that idea is based off of just assuming that you are already in the right and everyone who's not like you is wrong. Okay. This teaching not predates. I want to say, oh shoot. It probably predates the Civil War, but it's a pretty early on teaching from their part. And it's not to say that there weren't groups outside of them that also believe the same thing, but they're the ones that really pushed it in their books. Like the Bible never says that, but their books do. Okay, their teachings do, and so that is true. You're absolutely right. They no longer teach that. You are correct. But the fact is that they believe that everything that their prophets say is directly from God. But yet their prophets taught that the mark of Cain was being black. So I would argue that their prophets are not prophets of God. That's my point here. Does that make sense? Okay. So what is the mark of Cain? We don't know. We're not told. We are not told at all. No clue. And you're not meant to know because Cain's dead long since. So you don't need to know. You're not going to try to kill him. Simple as that. All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and finish this out and then I'll take questions. So Cain knew, again, experiential word for know, which means sex. Cain knew his wife and she conceived and bore Enoch. So let's talk about wife. Where did Cain get his wife? People are like, oh, there had to be other people on the earth, right? No. Where did he get his wife? Super simple. Don't overthink it. Sister, yeah, not that hard. Or it could have been a cousin at this point. Well, not a cousin. Could be like a niece. I could say it that way. Sorry, not a cousin, but so like if um other sons and daughters. So if one of his other brothers had a daughter, he could have married her because the whole age idea of like you have to be a certain age that didn't exist at this point. The idea of marrying his sister didn't have to exist at this point. Okay. But yes, brothers and sisters absolutely had sex with each other to procreate. That's all the people they had around. There were no rules set in place for this. And if you're worried about things physiology, like deformities and stuff. First off, all that is grossly exaggerated. You can look at the Amish. Yes, they look weird, but that's because they are all of the same. Like their genealogy, their family tree is a telephone pole. So they all look the same, but they don't have all of these. But they don't have all of these deformities that people claim should come from them. It's just not there. Plus, we also understand the human genome is a lot weaker than it once was. And so that means at this point it was at its peak, stronger. So it could handle any of those issues until the procreation spread. Okay. So there's no real reason for saying anything other than it was his sister or a niece. Those are the two options. Well, look, okay, so I know that you're talking about the royal bloodlines in Europe and how they had deformities. But here's the thing, the deformities were not there because of their inbreeding. The deformities stayed there because of their inbreeding. That's the thing. Just like everybody in your family tree could have red hair. And if you only married people with red hair, you'd still have red hair. It's not because you were inbreeding that you have red hair. See what I mean? So it's because of their limited gene pool that those deformities stay in the gene pool, not that it caused it. So let's do a little more research into genetics before we make assumptions on those things. It is over exaggerated by 100%. It is. Okay. I highly recommend you look into it. It's overstated. Okay. So that being said, let's keep going. So Enoch. And so Enoch, this is a different Enoch than the one we'll read about later. It's not a big deal that he had the same name. There's more than one person named Joshua in the Bible. We read about Moses' helper named Joshua. Who's the other Joshua? Do you guys know? There's actually two others. I should be clear. There's one in the book of Ezra, but that's not the one I'm talking about. Who's the third Joshua, I should say? It's Jesus. Absolutely, it is. You're right. 100%. You got it. So yes, 100% is Jesus. Yep. Jesus his name is Yeshua. And if you transliterate it according to the Hebrew, it is Joshua. If you transliterate it according to the Aramaic, it is Jesus, which is where we get Jesus from. Okay? So, yes, 100% his name is Josh. Almighty God Josh. Funny when you say it that way, but it's still technically true, right? Okay. All right. Moving right along. Yeah, totally. So if you know a Josh, he's named after Jesus. Just saying. Maybe. He could be named after one of the other two Joshes. All right, moving on. So when he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad fathered Mahujael, and Mahujael fathered Methushael, and Methushael fathered Lamech, and Lamech took two wives. The name of the one was Adah, and the name of the other was Zillah. Adah bore Jabal, and he was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock, shepherds. His brother's name was Jubal, He was the father of those who play the lyre and the pipe. So we have the arts going on very early in human history. Zillah also bore Tubal-Cain. He was the forger of all instruments of bronze and iron. So you have the metalworking already going on very early on in human history. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah or Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice. You wives of Lamech, listen to what I say. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is sevenfold, then Lamech's revenge is 77-fold. Okay, so what's going on here? He's presuming on God. Now, already, this is the first example of a false religion. Yes, and I'm not overstating that. You might think I'm exaggerating when I say that, but think about it. He's literally pretending to speak for God. He's claiming something for himself that God did not say. People don't understand what's going on here because they assume he's speaking for God, but God didn't say this. God told Cain, I will protect you and I will pay back sevenfold. But here you just have Lamech saying, Lamech saying it himself. It's like, oh, hey, I'm a descendant of Cain, so I can murder who I want and God will get him back extra. No, that's false religion. Very first example right there. And this is showing us that everything that we are aware of as far as basic human ingenuity is already progressing. So we know there's farmers because of Cain. We know there's shepherds because of Abel and through whatever his name was, Adah. And then we know that there were Jabal was producing the arts, and then here you have your first false religion. Gotta love that, right? And Adam knew his wife again. Here we go, and she bore a son and called his name Seth. So after you get a lineage down, okay, look at this. I want to show you this. They were continuing to have kids this whole time here. So you have Adam and Eve gave birth to Cain, and Cain had Enoch, and Enoch had Methuselah, and Methuselah had Methushael, and then you get Lamech, and then you get Lamech's two kids, and then after that you get Seth, called his name Seth. So you have all these people having kids all at the same time. Why? Because they lived to be 1,000 years old in this time. So it's not a big deal that after 4 generations, Eve pumps out another baby. Cool, here's another boy. All right. So she called him Seth, for God said, God has appointed for me the offspring of Abel, for Cain killed him. So the idea here is she's going to name him the word Seth, which sounds like the Hebrew word for he appointed. So God has given me a replacement for Abel. That's the idea. Seth is the replacement Abel. Okay. And to Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. At that time, people began to call upon the name of the I Am. So at this time, you have people calling out to God. That means even though you've got the first false religion here, you also have the genuine religion going on. At that time, people are calling out to God. People are talking to him. People are trusting in him still at this point based off of what Adam and Eve have taught them. Okay? So, any questions so far on Genesis chapter 4? Welcome back. Where did all this happen? In the Middle East, yeah. Although the geography of the land has likely changed since this time, because you did have a worldwide flood, which would significantly change geology, especially when we talk about it. You'll understand why. Was Lamech the first to have taken 2 wives? So far as we're told, yes. Is it possible that there are others? Possibly, but we aren't told about them. Like I said, there could have been thousands of people by this point. We don't know. Where did the garden go? We aren't told, but it's likely in the New Jerusalem. Most likely the city of God was taken up from the earth, because when it does come back down, you see the tree of life again in Revelation. Thank you very much, Moont. I appreciate that. All right, let's go. Move on to chapter 2. This keeps dropping. Ugh, there we go. I think I'm going to have to get a better stand because this one keeps weakening on me. All right, for those of you just joining us, we are doing a Bible study. I'm not Dinks the Puppet. I am his traveling companion. He does the videos. I do the lives. Works out better for both of us. We're in Genesis chapter 6, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. Here we go. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When Adam created man, when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. So the word Adam and man is the same word in Hebrew. That's what that little footnote is going to tell you. So Adam, we don't know if he was actually called Adam because remember, the Tower of Babel happens after this. We have no reason to assume that Hebrew was the language that they always spoke. No reason to assume that at all. Okay? So we don't know what language they spoke. But his name was the same thing as man, whatever language that was. If it's still around or if it completely disappeared when everyone's language is split, we don't know. Okay. So he made him in the likeness of God, male and female, he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness after his image and named him Seth. Okay, so this tells us the passage of time was between Adam and for Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve is less than 130 years. Okay, when Cain killed Abel, it was likely somewhere around this 130-year mark for Eve to tell us that Seth was the replacement, because it does say they had other sons and daughters. It's about to tell you that right here. But for her to say that Seth is specifically the replacement for Abel means that it was somewhere around the same time that Abel was murdered. Okay, so after 130 years, that's plenty of time for at least a few hundred people to be born if all they're doing is having a bunch of sex and making a bunch of babies. Okay, and really, what else are you going to do with your life at that time? And there's no sports. There's work and a few flute players. Okay, so recreation's pretty simple, my friends. All right, and there's byproduct of that recreation. Just to be straightforward with you, right? Boy, this thing does not want to stay up. It's frustrating. All right. So, the days of Adam after so I want to talk about this image thing. So when it says God made him in the likeness of God, made him in his own image, then it says that he fathered a son in his own likeness after his image. So what this is telling us is that the image of God is passing down through the genealogy. So to say you are made in the likeness of God is specifically from this paragraph right here. It's handed down through your ancestors all the way back to Adam. You are made in the likeness of God just like Adam was. That's the point of procreation, okay? So the days of Adam after he fathered Seth were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. Okay, pretty straightforward. When Seth had lived 105 years, he fathered Enosh. Seth lived after he fathered Enosh 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Seth were 912 years and he died. We'll get to these big numbers in a second, okay? When Enosh had lived 90 years, he fathered Kenan. And Enosh lived after he fathered Kenan 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he fathered Mahalalel. Kenan lived after he fathered Mahalalel 840 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Kenan were numbered 910 years, and he died. When Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived after he fathered Jared 830 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he fathered Enoch. This is the Enoch you've heard of. The book of Enoch, named after this guy. Yes. And by the way, the book of Enoch is not scripture because it claims to have written by him, and it can't possibly. We can prove it was written in between the Old and New Testament. So, yeah, it lies. It's not scripture. All right, moving along. Jared lived after he fathered Enoch 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. When Enoch's going to be the weird guy here. When Enoch had lived 65 years, so pretty young relative to the others, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Enoch were 365 years. That's it. Young pup. Okay? Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Wait a second. What does it mean he was not? God took him. He just couldn't be found. One day he disappeared because God wanted him. He had such a great relationship with the Lord. The Lord's like, I'm not waiting. You're coming home with me. The end. Pretty cool. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech, a different Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son and called his name Noah, you know that name, saying, out of the ground that the I Am has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. Lamech lived after he fathered Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus, all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Those are his three sons. Okay, so now we got to Noah. Cool. But I've got so much to talk about here. So first off, let's talk about these ages. Okay, people who want to demythologize the Bible come up with all crazy kind of ways to explain these big numbers. The length of a year has not changed. There's no evidence that it ever has. There's no evidence to say that they had a different calendar. There's no evidence to say that the Earth went around the sun faster before. No. Don't think so. The best explanation for this goes right along with the flood theories, okay? That the ages of everything and everybody on the earth was extended due to the different ecology of the earth. And we're going to get into that when we explain the flood. But the flood, we explained in Genesis how there was in chapter 1 how there was the waters above that were separated from the waters below, and in the middle was the expanse or sky. So there was water above the sky. There was this vapor canopy that surrounded the earth. It's still there, but very thin. But having a much thicker layer of water would have done several things. First off, it would have filtered out most of the UV rays. There's a reason why octopuses don't have blood vessels that go in front of their eyes, because they live in the water. Water filters out UV rays. Their eyes don't need to be protected. If you put an octopus on the land for long enough, it would go blind. We have blood vessels that go in front of our eyes, a very thin layer. You can't see them, but the blood vessels protect us from UV rays. Protect your eyes. But your body still gets all of those UV rays, which is responsible for most of the deterioration of your body. Also, during that time, it would have kicked up the hyperbaric pressure. Okay, so you would have had fuller, thicker, richer plants growing that would have created hardier enzymes for us to eat. We would have got all of our nutrients from plants. We didn't have to eat animals at that time. It also says it hadn't rained before, but all of the garden itself was watered with a mist that would bubble up from the earth. We already know that there's more water under the crust of the earth than there is water in the oceans. We can prove that now scientifically. So where did all that water go? It's under the crust. Where did it come from? Above the sky and under the crust. And it just went all under the crust. So it's not that hard to understand how a flood would work, but when you understand there was a different ecology, it explains why things lived longer. So what about dinosaurs? Oh yes, everybody wants to ask about dinosaurs, right? Okay. So dinosaurs are just reptiles. that lived 10 times longer. It is proven. You can look it up. Reptiles do not stop growing. So if a reptile lives 10 times longer than it does now, how big would it get? Pretty big. Now, are there some species of reptiles that probably died off since then? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. But that doesn't change the fact that the giant dinosaurs we see are actually rare. Most dinosaur fossils that we find are like sheep-sized fossils. The average animal didn't get that big. We have a handful of examples, hundreds compared to the millions, right? And so keep in mind that even though they could get that big, they didn't all get that big. All right. Now, that being said, there's another pattern I want to show you before I take questions here, okay? I want to show you, I'm going to have to look this up because I'm going to do it wrong if I don't look it up, all right? Go to Google here. Meanings of the names of the ancestors of Noah as prophecy. I want you to see this. If I can spell prophecy. Yep, there we go. Okay. Let's see here. Da, 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 da. I want it all in a row. I really don't want to use AI, but it looks like I'm just going to have to do it. Yeah, here it is. Okay. I want you to look at this phrase that's being spelled out in their names. Now, as I said, we don't necessarily know that these were their names in the original language. This is what they're being named by God and Moses. Okay, keep that in mind. All right, not Noah, Moses. Yes, that late. Here we go. Adam means man. Seth means appointed or placed. Enosh means mortal. Kenan means sorrow, dirge, or elegy. Halalel means the blessed God. Jared means shall come down. Enoch means teaching or commencement. Methuselah means his death shall bring. Lamech means the despairing or despair. Noah means rest or comfort. Okay, so when we put it all together, let's just read it out. Man is appointed to die sorrowfully. The blessing of God shall come down and through teaching, and his death, Methuselah's death, shall bring despair. And then Noah means rest. Rest from what? From the despair. So here's the interesting thing. Methuselah dies. If you look at the calculations, he dies on the same exact year of the flood. His death shall bring the despair, but Noah shall be the rest from it. So his death on the year of the flood allows the flood to come, but Noah gives a rest from the despair of the flood. He's spared. He's saved. Humanity is saved from it. Pretty cool, huh? Those are always fun to do. It's a hint of Jesus. Not directly. It's a vague prophecy at best. But I will say that Peter, in 1 Peter 3:21, 1 Peter chapter 3, pretty much the whole thing, does equate Jesus to being like Noah's Ark. Yes. That he is the ark that we are saved by, if that makes sense. How do you find this type of stuff? You learn from people who know more than you. I just simply retain factoids like that easily. And so I remember to look it up and tell you about it. It's just the way my brain is wired. That's also why I know way too much about Star Wars, which is of no use to us at all here. Like I know exactly the two different ways that the Death Stars were built, and I know who oversaw both programs. It doesn't matter at all here, does it? Okay, so Do you think that because of long lives meant a slower maturity? No, but I think it meant a prolonged maturity, if that makes sense. Like clearly they were having kids into being like 100 and something years old, right? 300 years old in case of one. So I don't think it's that it was a slower maturity. I think they grew at the normal pace we would know a child grows into adult, but they stayed in their peak longer. They stayed viable longer because of the better ecology of the earth at that point. What's my favorite Star Wars movie? Oh, Rogue One. I love all of Star Wars. I hate all that Disney did with it, but that was the one exception. All right, moving along. All right, increased corruption. Now we get to the other thing everybody always wants to know about. Yes, we're going to talk about the Nephilim. They are here. I have to talk about it. I've already boned up on it, so we're ready to go. But give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay. Thank you for your patience. So did the Giants exist around this time? Yeah, so we're going to talk about that right now. Perfect timing. Okay, here we go. So for those of us just joining us, we are doing a Bible study. I'm not Dinks the Puppet. I am his traveling companion. He does the videos. I do the lives. Works out better for both of us. We're in Genesis chapter 6, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. Here we go. So we'll get into both the theories of it, but let's start just by reading the text here. All right. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive. Here's the important thing: they were attractive. So whoever these sons of God people are, they thought whatever the daughters of men are were attractive. There's a sexual attraction. That's the point. Okay. Now, this cannot just be arbitrary. God is setting up, telling Moses exactly why he flooded the earth. He's telling us exactly why he did what he did. And so he's not going to just say, well, some godly people had sex with ungodly people. That has nothing to do with anything. That's not a reason to flood the earth. Something more has to be going on here. Okay? And they took as their wives any they chose. Then the I Am said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, we'll talk about that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. So let's talk about this. Okay, so there's two prevailing theories on exactly what and who the Nephilim were. Okay, so first is that we read this according to traditional translation. Sons of God is a traditional term that's used also in Job to refer to angelic beings. Okay? Not always. Yes, there are some places where sons of God refers to people who are of God. But if that is the case, okay, then daughters of men means nothing. They're just daughters that were produced by men. There's nothing here to say that daughters of men means wicked people. Okay? There's nothing here that implies that being a daughter of man is a wicked thing. There has to be some violation here, just in this half a sentence, for anything else to make sense. The word Nephilim means fallen ones. So if we understand that the Nephilim refers to the sons of God, then they have to be the fallen angels, demons. So, do I believe the Nephilim were an attempt to create a hybrid race between angels and humans? Yes, I do. And the reason I believe that is because none of the other theories make sense, but I'm going to teach you the other theories. Okay? I'm not going to ignore it because, hey, I could be wrong. I just don't think I am. It doesn't make sense why he would go to the effort of flooding the earth for this. Okay? So, let's talk about this. If sons of God means anything else, the other theory just means that they were of Seth's bloodline, of the people of God. Seth was loyal to God, and they started procreating with the daughters of man, the daughters of Cain's bloodline, the evil ones. Well, the problem is the Bible doesn't ever say that the descendants of Cain are all evil. It doesn't say there's anything wrong with them intermarrying or anything. There's no violation for that to be the issue, but we'll keep going. So when they say that that these were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown, the hybrid theory tells us that when these fallen angels manifested in physical form, created some sperm for themselves to put into these women and thus had life with them, yes, that it created beings of increased, enhanced abilities, but also explains what goes down here, the sudden increase in wickedness, because you have these fallen angels that are literally raising half demon people. Okay, now if we go with these were just one bloodline and the other, it doesn't explain the mighty men thing. There's got to be a reason for saying this. There has to be a reason why God is telling us this. And it can't just be, and they happen to be mighty men, by the way. It doesn't make any sense otherwise for them, for this crossbreed, to be mighty men, and why it matters that they were mighty men, unless we're talking about something genetic. It's the only thing that makes sense to my brain. You're welcome to disagree with me, but don't do it just because you don't like how supernatural it sounds. Jesus rose from the dead. The very basis of our faith is on something supernatural. So don't be so quick to throw it out just because it sounds too miraculous, okay? Don't let that be the reason. Do the study, okay? Now, that being said, the I Am saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that the very intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Why? Because he was raised by demons. Would not make any sense for it to just suddenly get so bad if it was just, well, the sons of Seth married the daughters of Cain and everybody just suddenly went evil. That does not make any sense. Okay. All right. You're welcome to believe that. It just doesn't work for me. Okay. Now, there's still some more evidence to come on this. And the I Am regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the word regret here does not have the English implication that the word regret has in English. Remember, this was not written in English. This was written in Hebrew. This is 100% emotional, not intellectual. So his regret is the grief of his heart. He felt the regret. He feels terrible about the situation. That's what this word means. In the Hebrew, in English, it means I wish I hadn't done it. But God does not make mistakes. That's not what it's saying here. Okay? It is purely 100% emotional. Okay? So the I Am said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heaven, for I am sorry, emotional, that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the I Am. And we're going to find out why, which connects with the whole Nephilim thing. But let's go back to what we talked about before also. So I talked about how the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. After what? Well, there's two theories on this afterward, okay? The first theory is that it's talking about that they were around while he was building the ark. That's the afterward it's talking about. That they were there during the wicked time and after God talked to Noah. I don't think that's so much the case. Because if we go to, I think it's, hold on a second. It is, let me see if I can find it here. I believe it's Exodus, but I don't know what chapter. Exodus, report of the spies. They are mentioned again. Numbers, my bad. Numbers chapter 13. All right, so let's go there. Okay, the spies are sent. They go check out the land. The report of the spies. All right, here we go. At the end of 40 days, they returned from spying out the land. So Israel is in the desert. Moses sends spies into the land to go check out the promised land, the land of Israel that would eventually be theirs. And they came to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the people of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told them, we came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, so that means there's goats and bees, and this is the fruit. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of Negeb. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. Okay, and so let's keep reading. They're mentioned later. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it. I love Caleb's faith. Let's go take it. For we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. So the question is then, if you have this report of Nephilim, yet the Nephilim were prior to the flood and everything should have died in the flood, how did the Nephilim reappear? So there are three theories here. I'm going to teach you all three, okay? The first theory is this, it's what's called the second incursion theory, where they do agree that Nephilim were the hybrid offspring between fallen angels and humans, and they just tried again. I don't buy that because of Jude. Let me show you this here, okay? Jude says, and talking about what's going on in the spirit realm, and the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under the gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day. 2 Peter 2:4 goes along with this and says, for if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until judgment. So, and then he goes on to make his real point. So the whole point of what's going on is it was a message to all the other demons. And here in 1 Peter he says, in which he went, Jesus, and proclaimed to the spirits in prison because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 persons, were brought safely through the water. So he's talking about how Jesus declared his victory over their plan to thwart God's plan. Like, no, you failed, I win, you lose. And so the whole idea is that there was this advertisement of you shouldn't do this by God, by chaining the ones who did it in the pit. They are kept there till the day of judgment. They will not be released until the day of judgment. That's how heinous this sin was. And that's why it kind of fits perfectly with the whole Nephilim thing. So then I don't buy the second incursion thing because they would have been well aware of what the consequence was. So no, I don't buy that they tried again. The second theory is that the genes of the Nephilim were passed on through the genetic material of Noah's sons' wives, at least one of them. might have had the genes of the Nephilim in her. Because when we go to talk about Noah, it's going to say how he was perfect in his generation. It's talking about not only him morally, but it's talking about him physiologically, that he was pure of this blood. But it doesn't say his sons' wives were. So one of them might have had some of the Nephilim genes. I don't necessarily agree to that, because the whole point of the flood was to wipe out what was going on. So the third theory, which I think is most likely true, okay, keep in mind, neither Moses nor these spies had ever literally seen a Nephilim, ever. They were told about them. Moses wrote about them in Genesis. He would have read Genesis to them. So when they saw giant people, because they were scared, they immediately called them the Nephilim. So in their eyes, they're calling these people Nephilim. So Moses is not lying when he says that the Nephilim were before and after, because Nephilim just means fallen ones, giant, and the implication is giant people who are fallen ones. So I don't think it necessarily is the same Nephilim. I think that they assumed they were Nephilim and called them that. So it's still accurate to call them Nephilim because they called them Nephilim. But I don't think it's the same Nephilim. I think they exaggerated because they were too scared to go in. Does that make sense? So you can pick your theory. All three fit with Scripture. I just don't see how they survived the flood. And I do not subscribe to all the conspiracy theories about how Nephilim are being hidden in bunkers and they're teaching us secret technologies and blah, 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 blah. I don't buy that. No. Okay? That's just saying God's not capable of doing things. Goliath, so Goliath just had giantism. That's not really that hard to explain. See, that is actually sad to hear that God felt that way. How often does he feel like that? Oh, the regretting? Yeah, well, and that's what we call grieving the Spirit, by the way. Do not grieve the Spirit. You can grieve God, clearly. And that's just basically when you turn your back on him, betray him after all he's done for you, you know? So, all right, this seems like that's all we got. That's fine, move it along. Here we go. So Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, and he's going to explain why. Here we go. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. And Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So let's talk about this. In the Hebrew, when it says he was a righteous man, blameless in his generation, the word blameless, okay, is also the same word used for pure, spotless. Generation means out of all the people. So the word blameless absolutely can mean morally righteous, but it could also mean physically righteous. Right? And so if we understand that there is a crossbreeding going on, what it's saying is that Noah walked with God because he wasn't a part of the demon hybrid race, because he didn't have that tainted bloodline. He was pure in his generation, which would make perfect sense why God would want to wipe out the rest of wicked humanity, because Noah and his sons were the only ones left. Okay? So now let's keep going. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight. Why was it corrupt? Not just because they're wicked. Something was corrupted. And the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. We don't know what gopher wood is. Despite what videos you might have seen, we do not know what gopher wood is. It's not some special tree in Florida, okay? And don't listen to those videos. This is a word in Hebrew we actually don't know how to translate. So we don't know what gopher wood was, okay? It's literally the only place in antiquity where this Hebrew word exists. It's just some kind of wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. Now, here's the interesting thing, inside and out with pitch. You would use pitch to waterproof something, but typically you would only put pitch on the inside. But here he's saying put it inside and out. He's wanting it to be extra waterproof. Whatever's about to happen is going to need extra protection from water. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 300 cubits and its breadth is 50 cubits. So cubit is about the span of from your tip of your finger to your elbow. And I know everybody's, their finger to their elbow is different, but it's an approximate. Okay, that's approximately what it is. And its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. So each deck is 30 cubits high. Okay. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. So everything that breathes, he's going to kill it. Now, the exception to that is going to be anything that's already in the ocean. What about fish? What about whales? They're in water. They're fine. They're just fine. And anybody worried about freshwater fish? Do you realize that freshwater and saltwater does not mix? It would have naturally created layers and pockets on its own. Not a problem, especially when you have God superintending everything. Everything that is on the earth shall die, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And everything living, and every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring two of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, and of the animals according to their kinds, and every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind, two of every sort shall come into you to keep them alive. Also take with you every sort of food that is eaten and store it up. So he's literally storing food for himself and for the animals. Yes, there would have been plenty of space for that. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this. He did all that God had commanded him. Okay, cool. Now, let's talk about the feasibility. This is something to talk about. There's no way you could fit all those animals on an ark. Well, first off, it doesn't say every species. It says every kind. Okay, so we don't know how many species existed at that time. We don't know how many kinds existed at the time, but the kind is kind of like an animal kingdom type of a thing. It's a classification that's above species. So if you think about wolves and dogs, they're different species, but they're the same kind of animal. They are canine. Okay, horses and donkeys and zebras are all different species, but they're of the same kind. Does that make sense? So if you're given enough time, it's not a problem for those kinds to develop into the species we have today. The genetic variety will happen of its own naturally, just like we have black people and Asian people and white people and just different looking people all over the planet. Not that hard for animals to do the same thing. Now, especially when they're interbreeding. Now, yes, I'm going to take you there. You better believe it. Here we go. Always do. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Noah's Ark has been found. I absolutely 100% believe it. If you find my videos where I talk about the Bible credible at all, I want you to at least give this a fair look. Okay? Just at least just open-mindedly look into it. And if at the end of it you don't believe it's Noah's Ark, that's fine. I'm just asking you to look into it. Here's the reasons why. First off, it's exactly where it said it should be. The Bible says that Noah's Ark landed in the mountains, plural, of Ararat. Well, this is in the same mountain range as Mount Ararat. Okay. Secondly, if you give if you count into your equation the idea that the decks compacted on themselves and that the sides sagged out, this is the right proportions to be exactly what we just read with the different cubits and the different decks for Noah's Ark. Okay. So, and aside from that, yes, they have done ground penetrating radar and they have found cross joints and chambers in here. that you literally, we can see through dirt with sound, and they have found structure in here. Now, so having the man-made structure identifiers means this cannot be a natural phenomenon. And this region has never been politically motivated or accessible enough for it to be a fort. So all that's left, given all the other criteria, is that I do believe this is Noah's Ark. 100% I do. I don't have a problem with it. Now, let me give you one more reason why. Okay. I can't remember the name of it in the language, but it's called the Village of Eight. Village of Eight. Here we go. Let's go over this picture here. Okay. So there's also nearby called the Village of Eight. I can't remember what it's called in the original language. It's Durupinar, Durupinar. Anyway, so it literally means the Village of Eight. And in the Village of Eight, okay, why would they call it the Village of Eight? Well, you had Noah and his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. That's 8 people, the Village of Eight. And you have these giant stones. Now, these giant stones have a hole in them. And the hole is not a hole straight through. It's actually rounded. Why would you have a giant stone with a kind of an arch-shaped hole? Anybody know? Ah, you were quick, Emor. Good job, my friend. Let's see who else gets it. Not for a launch, not for a boat launch. So these are ancient anchors, okay? These are ancient anchors, and we know this because they're called stone anchors, okay? We know this because they used them all the way up through the Bronze Age, even into early Roman times. They still were cultures that had these stone anchors, but these are way bigger than the average vessel would need. These are way bigger, which means it was meant for a very big boat, a very big boat. So they would have used them to kept the vessel stable during choppy waters. And as the boat is about to land, you would cut them off so that you could run aground. So what seems obvious to us, those of us who believe this is true, this nearby village where they lived, Noah found the anchors that they had cut off when they saw land was coming, probably when the dove returned with the olive branch. He probably went ahead and cut off the anchors. He found them after the waters had subsided and set up his village there. I'm going to live next to this testimony that God saved us. Isn't that cool? Now, why are there crosses all over everything? That was not Noah's doing. That was actually done during the time of the Crusades. The Crusaders also believed that this was Noah's Ark. So they carved a bunch of crosses on there to say, we have been to this holy site. Pretty cool, huh? Whatever you think about the Crusades, that's beside the point. Okay? All right. I highly recommend you go look into this yourself, okay? I gave you L to you in a nutshell. There's a lot more information than I can go into, all right? But any questions on this so far? Oh, they found there's more than just shells on that, my friend. There are fossils of sea life on Mount Everest, and we're not to the flood yet. That's why I haven't talked about that. I also heard that the ark had no way to steer or control, so so Noah only had to put his faith in God when the rains happened. Yeah, we're not told that there was any steering mechanism anyway. Yeah, very possible. It's just a barge. How do you find this info? Like I said, all I do is I learn from people who know it better than I do, and my brain is wired in a way that I just remember factoids like that. So you can learn it too if you find it fascinating enough. Yeah, we don't know what gopher wood is. We're not told. As I said when we went over it, the word gopher is a word in Hebrew. We translate it as gopher, but we actually don't know what the word is. It's the only place in the entire Bible that that word is, and it's a descriptor of the wood. So we don't know what it means. It could have something to do with what tree it is. It could have something to do with how they shaped it or how they prepared it. We don't know what the word gopher means. So if you see a video saying, hey, we found gopher wood in Florida, don't watch it. It's dumb. Okay, we don't know what gopher is. All right, cool. We just went on how there were giants after the flood. We just talked about that. So if you need to catch up, this video will be saved on YouTube. So you can go back and start over in Genesis chapter 4, or you can go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1 with the previous video. It will be in my playlists on YouTube as well. It'll be under the Bible, or under playlists, you'll see Book of Genesis. That's where it'll be, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and move on. I'm not answering the same questions again. And I know maybe you weren't here for that, but that's okay. That's why you can go back and watch. All right, for those of you just joining us, oh, what's going on? Oh, we are doing a Bible study. Yes, I am not Diggs the Puppet, but I am his traveling companion. He does the videos, I do the lives, works out better for both of us. We are studying the book of Genesis. We're in Genesis chapter 7, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along or grab your own Bible. Here we go. Then the I Am said to Noah, go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are a righteous man, that you are righteous before me in this generation. Or you are blameless, you are pure before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals. Now, what this tells us is that Noah was told what a clean animal was. Long before it was reiterated to Moses for the book of the Leviticus. Okay, long before it was established, then Noah was told what a clean animal was. So what that tells us is that God was constantly talking to people and taking care of them, showing them this is healthy for you, this is not. This is good for you, this is not. And it's just that Moses was the one that wrote it down. Okay, so 7 pairs of all clean animals. So it's not just 2 of every animal. It's 2 of every animal and 7 pairs of all clean animals. So all the clean animals had 14 of each. 7 male, 7 female. And a pair of the animals that are not clean, and the male and his mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens also, and a male and a female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground. And Noah did all that the I Am had commanded him. Now, yes, I am well aware that 40 days and 40 nights is not enough time to flood the entire earth. I am aware of that. God didn't say that the rain itself would be all that it floods the earth. In fact, he tells us specifically what does. Okay? All he's literally saying is that it will rain for 40 days and 40 nights. That's going to be the byproduct of what actually is flooding the earth. I'll get to that. Okay? Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came upon the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wives and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters from the flood. So the waters are already rising. When they go into the ark, it's not because they're just hoping it's going to rain. No, it's already started. Why? Well, no, Moses already explained to us when he's writing this that it had never rained before. The water, the mist would just come up out of the ground and water the earth. And if most of the water that we know of was actually under the ground, that means the water would have been under much higher pressure. There would have been more springs, and there would have been more foggy mist coming up to water everything, keeping it moist. But suddenly, water's falling from the sky. That's normal to us. This is a new experience for them. Yes, let's go seek cover in this giant boat that Dad built because water's falling out of the sky. I want you to think of this. If water had never fallen out of the sky before, the idea that water's falling out of the sky would be really weird. Okay, it'd be like me saying pizza is falling out of the sky. Pizza does not normally fall out of the sky, people. And for them, neither does water. okay? But the water is already starting to rise. Of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, two and two, male and female, went into the ark with Noah as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. So it's already started to rise, but here the real water comes, and we're going to get into this, okay? In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. That's the water that floods the earth, not just raining for 40 days, okay? Raining for 40 days straight would be a bad flash flood, but no, this is so much bigger. This is not just a regional flood. I'm sorry, doesn't matter what you've been told, it's not regional. There's no reason to believe it's regional. God is wiping out sinful earth and all creation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a need to save all the animals, okay? So he could have just moved them off. So here we go. The fountains of the great deep burst forth. Let's talk about this. Here we have modern understanding because of ground penetrating radar and other things that we know that there is more water under the crust of the earth than there is on top of it. More water under the crust than in all of the oceans combined. And so if that is under pressure and it suddenly gets released, it's going to shoot out with a super intensity, such an intensity that it's going to affect all the ground around it. We'll get to that. And the windows of heaven were open. So remember, I talked about how there were waters above. That's what Genesis 1 tells us, that he separated the waters from the waters. This vapor canopy that gave us a completely different ecology before the beginning of the earth collapses. It's starting to collapse. We don't know what the cause is other than God wanted it to. But this also explains the change in ecology, the change in lifespans after the flood. While it lingers for a little bit, you still have a couple people that live to be a few hundred years old. Eventually, everybody just gets to be about our age because the remnants of that old ecology are just completely fading away. Okay, so the byproduct of water collapsing from the ocean above, this vapor canopy, and the water shooting up from the underground oceans that still are there to this day, by the way, and you have water going everywhere. And the byproduct is rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. That's not what caused the flood. It was already flooding, okay? Now, before we get to verse 13, let me show you the evidence of the wells of the deep here, okay? Satellite, if I can spell satellite. Yes, that. Oh, you boogerhead. I don't want AI. Leave me alone. Not everything has to be AI. Satellite view of the, what do we call it? The Earth under the oceans. Let's see that, if that works. Yeah, that. Okay. Let's see what comes up. Images. I'll find a good one here. Let's see here. Maybe I need to state that a little differently. Let's do side view of the. I don't know if it's necessarily fault lines. Okay, well, we'll go with this. It's a graphic, but it'll still make my point. Let's see if I can get a centered view here. Close enough. Okay, here we go. All right, so most of this is visible under the ocean. It stinks that I can't show you a better picture of it. I'll do a zoomed-in view of the Atlantic Ridge, but this will make my point. Okay, so if water suddenly gushed out from oceans underneath the crust. There would be evidence that the planet had some breaking up, right? So all around the Earth, you have what we call fault lines, these tectonic plate fault lines, okay? And what is interesting about these tectonic plate fault lines is that they perfectly line up not only with the coastlines, but with what else? What else do they line up with in the middle of those land masses? What do these ridges in the ocean, these pits in the ocean, what do they line up with on land? Not the continents. That would be, yeah. There you go, Young. You got it. Mountain ranges. Yeah, the continents just is what I'm talking about, the coastlines. But yes, the mountain ranges line up specifically. You have the Appalachian Mountains, which line up right perfectly in line with this Mid-Atlantic ridge. You also have the Rocky Mountains that line up perfectly with this one right here that goes through California. You've got mountains here, you've got mountains here, you've got mountains here that all line up perfectly with these ridges. So here's the picture I want to give you. I should have grabbed a piece of paper. Let me grab a piece of paper. Don't look at me. Okay. Hopefully you didn't see too much of me. All right. So I want you to imagine that this flat sheet right here is the crust of is the flat top of the Earth, okay? If you have water pushing up here, okay, let's imagine there's two pieces of paper here, and there's water pushing up and pushing out. It's going to push this paper aside, and when you push it aside, it's going to be easier to show this way. When you push it aside, push on it, what does it automatically do? It bubbles up, right? If I push it, it bubbles up. Exactly how I push it, right? So when these wells at the deep burst open and the waters came out, it pushed and made mountain ranges exactly in the same line. That is the evidence that we have of the global flood. The very fact that everything lines up perfectly like this. Does that make sense? So you have the valleys, the canyons in the ocean that line up with the mountains on the land because it buckled. And that's exactly how you end up with sea life fossils on Mount Everest. Because, boom, not only might it have been part of an ocean at one point and just pushed up that high, but also just the fact you had water flying around everywhere, which would have carried sea life with it, and it was pushed up. It pushed the sea life up with it. So not that hard to understand how it happened. You don't need millions of billions of years for it to happen. It's not necessary. Okay? Fascinating stuff. Now, I am very close to my limit as to being able to explain it to you. So here's what I want you to do. If you are interested in more, you need to go to answersingenesis.org. Is it there? Answersingenesis.org. Okay? This is the same people who have the Creation Museum, who have the Ark Encounter south of Cincinnati in Kentucky. Okay, that you need to go look and watch their videos because they have real scientists doing real explanations that are way more qualified to talk about it than me. Okay, I just find it fascinating and I remember things. That's it. I cannot go scientifically beyond that. Now, if you want someone to follow who can talk about it, Ken Ham is the person who's in charge of the organization. But also, if you're on TikTok, this is specifically for you TikTokers. Okay, let me see if I can pull him up. This is a friend of mine. Loading. Okay, so we're going to go to, hey, look, it's me. VOR. VOR. He's got this orange background, glasses. Okay, that's him. Voice of Reasons. And he used to be kind of a conspiracy nut before he found Christ. Now he deals with the same stuff, but all biblically based. And it's not so far out there that it's the weird stuff. So it's not like believing, like I said, that some people believe like the Nephilim are in secret bases teaching us technology. No, he doesn't go into that stupid stuff. No, he gets very extremely scientific. He can tell you why millions and billions of years couldn't even work just by talking about the moon and its orbit, things like that. Just he's super, super smart, does a lot of really intellectual things. His lives are fun because he'll take on atheists and evolutionists head on. So he's a good friend of mine. Check out VOR on TikTok. I don't know if he's on the other platforms, but look him up. Orange background, he'll have the same thing. Okay? If you're fascinated, go that route. Okay? Yeah, cool. You go ahead and follow him. I'll give you a second. Just VOR, Voice of Reasons. He has an orange background, white shirt, glasses. Oh, Ken Ham. Yeah, let me show you Ken Ham. Ken Ham's on all the platforms too, TikTok, no, but not just that. So Ken Ham, I follow him too. Let's see here. Yeah, Ken Ham. Answers in Genesis founder. And he's British or Australian or something. Sorry, I don't know. But anyway, he deals with more than just that, but he is the founder of the Ark Encounter and the Creation Museum as well. All right. Kent Hovind is good at presenting, but he didn't come up with any of that himself. He's been presenting for a very long time, and he's very polished at it. I don't have a problem with Kent Hovind, but I'm not going to take you to Kent Hovind because Kent Hovind didn't come up with anything himself. He just regurgitates it like I do. I'm not going to recommend myself for this stuff, so therefore I'm not going to recommend Kent Hovind. I'm going to recommend people who actually bring on scientists and talk about new things and new discoveries and how it fits with the already existing biblical model, if that makes sense. So if you like Kent Hovind, go ahead, that's fine. I'm just not going to bring him up because he just regurgitates what he knows like I do, if that makes sense. No, don't even worry about it. It's okay. It's not a bad. I'm just explaining why. Australian, yeah, okay, he is Australian. Thank you. All right, let's go on. Here we go. So pick up where we left off. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th month, we did that. Rain fell on the earth. Into the ark. Okay. The creature, they went into the ark with Noah, two of all the flesh, two of all the flesh in the earth, and those entered, male and female, as God commanded him. Yes, okay, the Lord shut him in. The I Am shut him in. Now, the flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark and rose high above the earth. It doesn't say that the rains stopped and the flood stopped. No, the waters kept going up because it was being released from under the surface. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters, and the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. Not a hard thing to do. So when we talk about mountains, like I said, where you push it and it goes up, right? That means all the mountains were lower, and it would take time for that to happen because it's not just boom, there's mountains. No, it would have been pushing, pressure. It would have been slower thing. So it's not that hard for all the mountains to be covered if all the mountains were lower than they are now. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's see here. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. Okay, so 15 times your fingertip to your elbow. That's not super deep, but that means he looked down once and probably saw the tip of a mountain, like through the water. Like, oh, dude, there's the mountain. If he knew that much. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground. Okay, so it doesn't matter about the water creatures, they're fine. Man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, they were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. So that means the waters kept rising for 150 days. It only rained for 40 days, but the water was still rising for 150 days. So the source was not the rain. The rain was the byproduct. Okay. Now, let's see. What was I going to say? I don't know. My brain just kind of skipped a beat. I was going to say something. I don't remember what it was. All right. Any questions on any of that? Am I a pastor? Yes, I am credentialed by Assemblies of God. Yes. What do you think about the flood being when Pangea broke apart? I think there's credit to some of Pangea, some of it. But here's my main problem with Pangea. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit well enough to be 100% accurate. You literally have to shrink South America by 30% to get it to fit with Africa. And it doesn't just magically grow. So that's my problem with Pangea is they literally play with the sizes of things to make it happen. So do I believe things were more interconnected? Yes, I do. Also, the whole geological structure of the earth was different. So I don't have a problem believing that everything was interconnected. That also explains how all the animals could get to Noah. But I don't necessarily believe that Pangea is exactly as they show us. Well, we can talk about Leviathan and Behemoth when we get into Job. Is it normal to not hear God's voice directly? Well, we're talking specifically about the Noah's Ark right now and this account in Genesis, but yeah, it is normal for you to not hear God speak. In fact, most of the time when people say God told me something, what they're really saying is my emotions told me something, and I want to believe it's God. Most of the time, God does not speak to you, especially if you just feel good about it. Most of the time, God speaks through His Word or through orchestrating your life. Trusting God's word. Okay. So the flood was caused by reverse volcanoes, not reverse volcanoes, just basically water vents, which we know exist. That's what Old Faithful is in, is it Yellowstone? That's literally what it is, just on a global scale. So it's already a phenomenon that we know of. It's okay. You're welcome. Archaeologists say that some fossils on the coast of other continents can be found on the other. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too about fossilization is not possible over a slow death thing. Okay, what I mean by that is generally if an animal dies, what happens to its body? If an animal just dies and falls down in the wilderness, what happens to that body? That's the interesting thing about how we have all these fossils. It doesn't make any sense. So what happens to the body? It doesn't decompose, something else happens. Something's going to get to it. Eaten. There you go. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Inevitably, in the wilderness, if you have a dead animal laying there, other animals are going to eat it, right? So, if the Earth was millions of years old and you had a bunch of animals dying, there's no reason to have any fossils at all. Fossilization only happens if you have a rapid burial, like just suddenly an animal is covered with dirt so that the body cannot decompose like you were guys are all saying. You're on the mark. I just wanted to get to the eating part. So you're smart. You're on it. But it cannot decompose. It cannot be eaten by animals. It can't go anywhere. It can't do anything. It just sits there and becomes rock. Okay, like all the new everything organic gets replaced by rock. And that so fossil literally is rock. It just replaced what was there. And so, but that only happens through a rapid burial. And the only way that rapid burial happens for millions of creatures all over the planet is if something happened to bury them all over the planet, like a global flood. Again, the very fact that we have so many fossils is evidence of a global flood. Thank you for that. And also, while we're talking about fossils, let me dispel evolution with just one thing right here. We are missing more than one link, my friends. For evolution to be true, for you to come from a primate, you are missing more than one fossil. You're missing more than 10 fossils. You're missing millions of links. Because even if you made a firm connection between human and primate, that does not explain any of the other connections of all the other species in the entire world. Where are all those missing links? And yet every fossil we find is a fully functioning animal of some kind, some that are around, some that are no longer around. But they are all fully functioning. There's no half-developed anything that eventually became something else. So just keep that in mind. If the flood is meant to cleanse the earth of evil, how can the story be around the themes of God's justice or his mercy? Thanks again for all this. Oh, you're welcome. And so, yeah, that's the point. It's not just about evil. It was about preserving the human race so that it could be saved. Again, that's why I also still subscribe to the whole Nephilim theory of being the hybrid of angels and demons, because otherwise it doesn't make sense for God to start over with Noah. He could, I mean, he could have just done any other thing. Why he had to wipe them out makes no sense to me, because anyone who's not saved by God is evil, is doomed, is going to hell automatically. Right now, today, anybody who's not of God goes to hell. So a bunch of people being wicked is no different than today. He could have just started a little group and saved them, just like he did with Moses, just like he did with Jesus and the Christians. Here's the group, they spread. He could have done that. It had to be something more than just the wickedness. The wickedness was the byproduct. Well, see, that's the fun thing about dating fossils. So how do they date the fossils in the rock layers? Do you know? Because this February says, except the Bible says the flood was about 4,000 years ago and fossils were millions of years earlier. Yeah, okay, that's what the scientists tell you. How do they date the fossils? Do you know? No, not by carbon, they don't. By the age of the layers. Okay, by the layers of rock they find them in. Perfect. Now, how do they date the layers of the rock? It's not carbon. Nope. By the age of the fossils. You got it, my friend. Yes. So they date the fossils by the layer of the rock, and they date the layers of the rock by the fossils. Do you see how that's circular? They can come up with whatever millions of years answer they want. And it does not work. Radiocarbon dating can only go back as far as 8,000 years at most, and water resets it. If you have any abundance of water in the area, it throws off the whole radiocarbon dating completely. Go look that up. And so if you have the whole world covered by water, it's going to throw off the dates of everything anyway. So no, the whole dating system is based off of the presupposition that things have to be millions of years old, not that it actually proves it is. You can believe in millions of years old, but then you're calling God a liar because he gave you specific time spans. And also because literally we are told that death entered the world through Adam. If evolution's true, then death pre-existed Adam. And Jesus assumed that Adam was real. You're going to say Jesus didn't know? Come on, man. No, you have. If you trust God to tell you the truth, why would he hide evolution from us? Why wouldn't he say, I developed you from monkeys? Why wouldn't he say that? Why would he say, I formed him from the dirt of the earth and made him in my image, and this was man and this was woman, and Jesus affirms it later in the New Testament? Why would he lie? And you might not say, well, it's not a lie, it's just poetic. Then it's still a lie because it's not true. So either God is true and man is a liar, or God is a liar and there's no point to living. Take your pick. I am drawing a hard line in here in the sand. I'm not saying you're not saved if you don't believe this, but I am saying you don't believe God on this matter. And you need to get with him on this and say, God, what do I do about your word that says other than what I believe? That is a matter you need to wrestle with him. So yes, you can be saved and believe in millions and billions of years old. True. Yes, you can. But you're still calling God a liar, and you need to deal with that. Yes, I know. Paleontology. I know. And I'm certainly not an expert in it. Like I said, I just remember a bunch of factoids and I know how to connect them. I am at the limit of what I can talk about. 100% I am. Okay. But you cannot call God a liar. You have to wrestle with that. Okay. If you say that the Genesis account was taken from the Egyptians or that it's just poetic or metaphor, you're still saying God didn't tell Moses the truth, regardless. And there's nothing in this at all that is anything other than narrative. There's no change in the format from figurative to literal at all. It goes straight from from Adam to Noah to Abraham, right in a line. And it does not say this is figurative, this might be figurative, this was literal. No, all three were real to God because he mentions them elsewhere in Scripture, all three of them. So I have no problem believing that everything that God said is true. And if I don't have the answers, if I don't know how it's not millions of years, I don't care at this point because God has proven himself true so often in my life that if science says something elsewise, in my life right now, I'm going to believe God because he's proven himself true so many freaking times. I cannot stand in his face and say, your word is wrong. I cannot stand and say, your word must be figurative because science says something elsewise. No, science has been wrong so many times in the past 1,000 years. And it always eventually catches up with the Bible. Always. So I'm not yelling at you. I'm emphatically encouraging you from the depths of my soul. Look into the science of creation because it does work. It does make sense. You don't have to listen to science because science doesn't want there to be a God. They want you to doubt God. They tell you a little bit of truth and a lot of lies or a lot of theories that fit their preconceived idea, and that's all the way back to the garden. That's exactly what the devil did when he said, did God really say that you would die? He plays the long game. He'll tell you a little bit of truth and get you to doubt God. That's his goal. And here you are saying, I believe in millions of years old, even though the Bible doesn't say millions of years old. You've already bought into the lie, the doubt. If you trust God to save your soul, how is it a problem for you to believe that he spoke the truth in Scripture in spite of what scientists want to believe? And by the way, there are plenty of reputable papers and scientists and documents that actually support the science of creation. But anyone who says, I believe in millions of years, hasn't actually looked into it. They'll say, oh yeah, I've looked into it. No, you freaking crap have not. Don't lie to me. Because once you actually look into it, it's amazing how much it fits perfectly with science, so much more than evolution ever could. So don't lie to me and tell me you've looked into it. Ever. I do not believe you because I've looked into it and it blows your mind once you start looking into it. You can't deny the truth of God's word once you actually look into it. So you might get others to believe you when you say you've looked into it and you still believe millions of years. I'm not going to believe you because I have looked into it. But that's also why I recommended my friend VOR because he does a great job of all of that. That guy right there, VOR. All right? That is my emphatic rant for the evening. I hope you enjoyed this evening's entertainment. I'm so sorry, guys. I really am. I don't mean to go off on people, and if I offended you, I do apologize. It's not my goal to offend you, but it is my goal to tell you that God is always right and man is always wrong. And if you don't agree with that, you're not with God. Okay? Imagine just coming into the live and I'm just going off like that. That would be weird. Hence the apology. Oh, I'm so grateful for you guys that are here like all the time. Because you've heard these things before, like you already know. You knew, like, oh man, he's cooking. Yeah, I hope he doesn't burn the pasta, you know? Okay, all right. Now we got to get on to the next chapter here. I at least want to do one more, all right? I know it's 9 o'clock, but hey, I'm not tired, so I'm gonna do one more. We're gonna bring the flood down. The flood that actually did happen. We're gonna bring that down. It's okay, Noodles. Noodles, it's okay. You just joined. I'm going to tell you how you can catch up. You're going to go to youtube.com and then you're going to type in Dinks the Puppet and my account will come up. All right. And so then you're going to go to playlists right here. And under playlists, you're going to find the book of Genesis. So we have chapters 1 through 3 that I did on Saturday, and then this one will be on there by tomorrow. It takes like 24 hours for it to process. I wish it wouldn't take that long, but it does. So you'll be able to catch up if you're interested at all in why I was raving and ranting. It'll be in there. All right. Lovely, lovely. I love it. And this stand keeps sinking. Pray for a new stand for me. How about that? One that can actually support the weight of these 3 phones. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's. I hate ads. Close that. Thank you. All right. For those of you just joining us, we are trying to do a Bible study. I'm not Dinks the Puppet. I am his traveling companion. He does the videos, I do the lives. Works out better for both of us. We're in Genesis chapter 8, reading from the English Standard Version. You're welcome to follow along and grab your own Bible. Here we go. Leave it out, didn't I? Nice. Well played. All right. But God remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. Okay, so it's not saying that he forgot, it's just saying he did remember. God did not forget. That's the implication. This is stated the same way that the book of life is stated in Revelation. Okay, people like to talk about Revelation 3:9, where it talks about how he says, I will by no means blot you out of the book of life. That's not saying you can be, it's just an assurance that you won't be. Okay, so same thing here. It's not that God's going to forget, it's that he didn't forget. He's got his eye on him. Okay, all right. And God made a wind blow over the earth and the waters subsided. So what's the wind? Well, it's just basically directing everything to where it needs to go. That's all it is. It's not saying that wind magically made water go down. It's just happening at the same time. The fountains of the deep and the windows of heaven were closed, so it stopped producing water. The water had pressure had released from below. There's no more rain. There's no more water above to fall. It's all fallen, and so they're done raining. That's closed. Just means ended. The rain from the heavens was restrained, and the waters receded from the earth continually. Wasn't just instantly. Okay, continually. Oh yeah. Yeah, this thing. At the end of the 150 days, the water had abated. And in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the mountains, plural, of Ararat. So not Mount Ararat, the mountain range that Ararat is in. Okay? Which is exactly where we found that thing that I showed you in Turkey. And the waters continued to abate until the 10th month. So it's going down, 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 like my phone stand is. Okay. And in the 7th month, on the 7th day of the month, the ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat, and the waters continued to abate to the 10th month. And the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So now they land in the mountains. Okay, they're landing in the mountains of Ararat, and eventually they see the tops of the mountain. Hey, there's islands popping up. Okay, do you realize an island is simply a mountain in the middle of the ocean? It's a fascinating thing to think about, and it's 100% true. Islands are mountains that are in the ocean. Pretty interesting. Okay. And let's see, at the end of 40 days, Noah opened the windows of the ark, that he had made, and set forth a raven, and it went to and fro until the waters were dried up from the earth. Then he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters had subsided from the face of the ground. But the dove found no place to set her foot, and she returned to him to the ark, for the waters were still on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her and brought her into the ark with him. So he's looking for signs of life. If the dove doesn't come back, he knows that it found a place to nest. It's ready to make its nest somewhere. So the tops of the mountains are visible, cool, but that's not like trees. That's not grass. That's not fields, okay? So he's looking for more than just the tops of the mountains. He waited another 7 days, and again sent forth the dove from the ark. And the dove came back to him in the evening, and behold, in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had subsided from the earth. Okay, so there's a tree visible somewhere. Trees didn't have to be wiped out. Trees are fine in floods as long as the flood isn't forever, as long as it doesn't permanently get flooded. Okay? Then he waited another 7 days and sent forth the dove, and she did not return to him any more. This is really bugging me. Hold on. Let me see what I can do with this. Hold on. I've got a glass here that I'm going to try to prop this stand on so it stops sinking and I stop making you guys seasick. There. Should rest on that and stop sinking. There. Sorry for making you seasick when we're talking about Noah's Ark. Oh, the irony. Okay. In the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried from the earth, from off the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. So the covering was basically the door. He opened the door. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth had dried out. Then God said to Noah, "Go out from the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you of all flesh, birds and animals, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, that they may swarm on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth." So Noah went out, and his sons and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, and every bird, everything that moves on the earth, went out by families from the ark. So people are like, why? How could these two animals find each other in the wilderness? They were literally together. They walked out together. It's not that hard to find your companion if they're right next to you. They weren't blind animals. Then Noah built an altar to the I Am, and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Imagine that. So that's why God had 7 pairs of each of the clean animals, okay, for sacrifices, for food, for sacrifices, and to be plentiful. But immediately you're taking a part of what's left of the earth and sacrificing them is a good thing. There's more than just 2 of each. And when the I Am smelled the pleasing aroma, the I Am said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground because of man." So he cursed the ground for Adam, he cursed the ground for Cain, and he cursed the ground for all of humankind by washing it with water. Okay. "For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." So for as long as earth remains, you're going to have your seasons. He's not going to wipe everything out again. Okay? And then he sets up a sign, which we'll read about in the next chapter. Any questions on that so far? Okay. Just wonder how many verses are in chapter 9. Nah, we'll end it there. Okay. There's still more to Noah's story. This is not the end of his story, believe it or not. There's more that happens, and that's chapter 9. But I think we'll save that for the next time. Okay, so let me remind you of a few of the resources I talked to you about. No, yeah, I've heard the whole theory of people hiding in caves. That just means God didn't do his job. If Noah was not the only one left, him and his sons and his wife and their wives, if they were not literally the only ones left, then God lied. No, people did not hide in caves. There's nothing in the Bible that says they hid in caves. And if they did and they survived, that means they were able to survive God. I don't buy that for a second. Okay? Silliness. That's all right, Slinguist. That's why it's saved, my friend. All right. So, just a few things to remind you of. So, if you want to support the ministry, or actually, I'll remind you about the resources. So, this will be under my playlist on YouTube right here under the book of Genesis. That's one thing. But also, if you go to TikTok and the people that I recommended to you, I'm going to bring up their name again. So first, I actually recommend a few more. So Ken Ham was one. Then there's VOR. That's my friend right there who gets really deep into the science of this stuff. Okay. But then there's also another one too, which is Creation Ministries International, which gets way more sciencey than Ken Ham stuff. Like you're talking hardcore science stuff they're talking about, and they're talking about the science of creation. They get deeper than I can even understand sometimes. So if you are a really big science nerd person, you're going to love this group right here. Creation Ministries INT, which stands for international right there. Okay? And then there's also the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. They both have accounts, but they're all by Answers in Genesis. So Answers in Genesis has its own thing on all the platforms. Go follow them if you want a more layperson-friendly scientific explanation of things, okay? On all the platforms. Aside from that, if you want to support the ministry, there's a couple ways you can do that. First off, you can go to dinksthepuppet.com and you'll get these different ways. First off, follow me on all the platforms. The more followers, the better. If you want to support us directly, you can become a subscriber on any of those. So you can become a member on YouTube. The others are called subscribers, but it's a paid thing. And there's a few extra perks you get from it, but mostly it just supports the ministry if you choose to. I'm not saying you have to. We have Dinks merch. So if you want to get Dinks or Sunny, that's my wife's account, Sunny the Puppet. You can, so cups and things like, and jackets and things like that. Dinks' wish list on Amazon. You can buy something, get shipped directly to us to be used for the ministry, Bibles, resources, costumes for the puppets. And then Cameo is a fun one where you can have a video made. I do get paid for that. You do pay for it, but it can be anything you want. It can be a happy birthday message. It can be, hey, make a video explaining baptism to the kids or whatever. Okay. You can absolutely do Cameo. Yes. So that being said, if you're interested in any resources, if you need any resources, then you're going to go to Sunny the Puppet, SUNNY, sunnythepuppet.net, and it'll take you to my wife's link tree. And so, of course, you can follow her on any of these platforms right here. Send her a request. Say, hey, look, I got dyslexia. I need a Bible made for dyslexia. Yeah, we've got those. I need a Bible that has good study notes. Yeah, we've got those. I just need Bible tabs because I'm having trouble finding the books. Yeah, we've got those. Or if you just want to write me a letter, you can write me a letter. And I will send you back a packet of stickers and bookmarks with Dinks and Sunny on it. And all you have to do is write a letter to that P.O. box right there. So go to dinksthepuppet.com. It'll be right there at the top. You can write me a letter. I will write you back. Absolutely will. Yeah, my word. All right. So that is tonight. And the next Bible study will be Saturday morning at 9 a.m. All right. We'll continue where we left off. We'll go to Genesis chapter 9. Yes, Genesis chapter 9 and continue from there. Otherwise, let's close it up, shall we? Daddy, I thank you for this time together with everyone. I ask for your blessing upon them, whatever I've said today. If it's not true, let them forget it. But if what I've said is true, if it's your truth, I pray that's what they remember, and I pray that it would just ring in their mind until they receive it. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and then you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling, a feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new. That'll be Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'll have more ideas for you. And you'll have things you'll want to talk about. And I will too. Hopefully, I'll see you at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It's 9 p.m. Eastern Time here now, so change to a.m. That's what time it is for you on Saturday. All right. But otherwise, check out my videos. I'll see you guys later.